WFH with two guys. Now here's Benny and Dennis.
Cybersecurity is a topic that keeps coming up, and it's never going to go away, Dennis. This is something that, in my world, in technology consulting, we have to deal with it no matter what. And I think that a lot of people, they're afraid of it. They don't understand it, and they don't know why they have to have it.
Yeah, it's like an insurance policy. None of us understand insurance. We hate paying the bill. But when you had that catastrophe, it saves you from a lot of problems. And as a small business owner, it's probably not on if you rank what money you've got to spend, it may not be a top one on your list, but it probably needs to be because you're at probably greater risk than some of the big companies. And so, listen to this podcast.
In terms of having something to be able to really understand, the experts that we have, that we bring into our businesses can help us, no matter what the type of technology or shoot. I know I'm not going to trust my accounting to me. I hire an accountant to be able to do that. We need that same type of oversight when it comes to cybersecurity. And just because we're small businesses doesn't mean that we're less of a target or we can't afford it. It's something that can be done. So today we have Bob Quandt with Bullseye Compliance. This is a really interesting topic, and I think they delve into some different areas about security and what that means for your business, different ways of being able to look on it. We take a look at how AI is changing the landscape of cybersecurity and why it's even now more important than ever. So let's have a listen. Through the nature of what I do on a daily basis, Dennis, technology is always intriguing for me. And security and being able to guard everything that we're building as business owners, it's super important. I think that it's really kind of taken for granted a lot of times, Dennis.
Especially for small to mid-sized companies, security they know it's there, but they think it's expensive, and they think if they avoid it, it won't happen to them. And we all know that they're probably the ones at the greatest risk. So we got Bob Quandt joining us from Bullseye Compliance today. And welcome, guys. It's great to have you on.
This is a really important thing. And Dennis and I, we talk about this from time to time. And when we talk to our clients, obviously Dennis and I work in the technology spaces, and our clients, a lot of times, they're aware of the importance and need for us to guard our assets digitally, most of our assets nowadays, especially for service providers, they're in the cloud. They're really at risk, and a lot of people don't understand that. Can you guys talk a little bit about like the state for the small and medium-sized business? What is cybersecurity? What are kind of the risks going on nowadays? I hear about things like ransomware and malware and all that kind of stuff. I'm a 5-person outfit. No one cares about me. It's not a big deal. Right?
Yeah. We hear that a lot, Benny. And I think that's, one of the misnomers being a small business is, no one's after me. There's nothing here that I want. But what we really are starting to see is these large organizations, they've put up their defenses pretty well. And again, they're not immune to cybersecurity attacks. We hear about it every day that these big companies are getting hit. But if I can go hit 10 small businesses in half a day versus having to spend weeks or months scouting out and figuring out how am I going to get into this large organization, that's what they're going to do. And that's what we're seeing is really, I think the last stat I heard on was about 43% of cyber attacks are targeting small businesses today.
One of the things that when I talk to people about malware, cybersecurity protection, and whatnot, we think that the hackers that are out there, they're kind of like the misnomer. There's a hacker out there, some guy with a hoodie who's sitting in a darkened room, smoking clove cigarettes, is just sitting there and I'm going to go and get ABC company. I'm going to get a gajillion dollars. And that's not the way it is. It's really, technology today has evolved, and cybersecurity criminals, they don't look like that, do they?
No, not at all. And it's a business. It's a very profitable business in a lot of different countries, including the U.S. But what you're seeing really is more of look like organized crime. This is a lot of these different areas that are looking at it. And then with the development of things like AI, we're seeing it's just improving. It's helping them to move into these businesses and trick users where Before you had the Nigerian prince scam that, I owe you, I'll send you $1 million. That's not the case anymore. Now that those emails are going to look very, very sophisticated.
Yeah, I mean, many of you, you've got to be careful. They'll even have the logo of the company you're expecting things from.
I like to say LinkedIn is their favorite tool, and it's a great tool for us, but it's also a great tool for the bad guys.
You're talking about things differently than I heard, say, certainly 5-10 years ago when it came to cybersecurity. We're always aware, you buy a computer from your local retail store and it came with a 1-year, antivirus protection, and we were fine. We're okay. That's really not it today. Dennis and I have this, I brought Dennis into this fold of loving AI, right? So Dennis was, a year ago, was not really aware of what AI could potentially do. But with the positive sides of AI, also the negative sides come with AI. And to what you're talking about there, and what Dennis had touched on too, is not only are the attacks more clever, they're almost becoming indistinguishable from genuine emails or websites or anything like that.
Right.
Can you guys talk a little bit about that? I mean, this is stuff that, and again, we don't want to we're not about scaring people, but we really want to make sure that people are aware of kind of the sophistication that we're talking about today, and what does that look like, and some of the things you guys may have encountered.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see this a lot. And like you said, the sophistication of how they're getting in it's to a level to where it really will look like it is, a business partner, somebody you're working with is going through there. But where before they couldn't even get to that level because of different things like language barriers, not understanding how a certain industry worked. Now they can pop that into AI, figure that out quickly, and really customize that. Yeah. And so I think that's really why small businesses today, like you mentioned, it was like, okay, I have my AV solution on here. I'm good. Nothing's going to impact me. You really got to start thinking about what we've talked about in larger industries for years, which is what we call defense in depth. So if this control fails, your detection of one of yourself or your employees recognizing that email is from a bad guy, what's the next step? What's the next layer that's going to protect you? Things like multi-factor authentication. I mean, that's one that if you do not have MFA on today, it's not a matter of if, but when you're going to get hit.
Can you guys explain what that is? Because that's a term that I know a lot of people may not be familiar with when it comes to two-factor or multi-factor authentication.
Yeah, it's basically just taking, more than just your username and password, which gets stolen. It's out there. It's part of breaches. Takes more than that and takes another factor such as a text code. It could even be an email. If you have an authenticator app like Google Authenticator, Okta, it's a code that you take that information, you enter that in when you're authenticating, and so that the service knows not only is it something which is your name and password, but it's something you have, either that code that's from a device that we know that it belongs to you. Yeah, focus really on all your key applications, especially in cloud applications. So if you think about what are your financial, accounting systems, your email services, your solutions that you use out in the cloud, all of those should have two-factor authentication.
I have a quick story to tell you guys on this one. It's like a family friend of mine, they locked down their Wi-Fi and all the security stuff, but the garage code was 1234 for many years. It always makes me laugh. Anyway, so yeah,
it's a perfect analogy. That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
I love it where the people use the same password for every single application, and it's like, okay, it may be long, but you're still using the same one, and once they figure that out, they can go everywhere.
Yeah, I think, one of the key things that you can do around passwords to make them easy is use passphrases, because that's where you get that length. And really, I'm not going to get into this because it'll bore the audience to death, but NIST, released some guidance recently around passwords and really using passphrases. So if you say, I need to take my dog for a walk every day, that could be a passphrase, but put some characters in there, put an exclamation point, something that you'll remember. but something that is from a technological perspective, someone trying to break what we call that hash, that encryption on that password is almost impossible. Where if you're using an 8-character password, even if it's a good password, it's going to be a lot easier for them to use technology to break that encryption and get that password. So passphrases, password managers, if you don't have one of those, I'd recommend using a password manager with a really strong password to get into it. And then that way you don't have to remember all these passwords. You have a tool that's out there to help you, remember that.
It's the best $69 a month I pay a year with one pass or whatever I have. And Bob, to your point, you definitely need to make sure that you put that one key password in your safe box or give it to someone that you trust, because we went on vacation for 2 weeks and I came back and I could not figure that out. Thank God my son had the information so we could get back in, because put it in your safe deposit box, but write it down somewhere and lock it up somewhere. But it's the best $69. If you don't use those as listeners, it just makes life so much easier.
No, I was going to say one other thing that I think I see gets overlooked a lot as far as things that you can do to protect yourself is a lot of these services that you're already paying for, such as Microsoft Office 365, Google Workspace. They have a lot of security pieces included with them, but people don't implement them. And, looking at those solutions and, just spend an hour on YouTube looking like, what are 5 steps I could do to secure my Microsoft 365 subscription. And it'll give you, feedback on how to do that, because since those systems are kind of the key into your email, your collaboration services, those are something that I also recommend to clients, spend some time focused on implementing what you already have. You don't need to go out and spend a lot of money necessarily.
The amount of sophistication when it comes to actually implementing technology for small, medium-sized businesses, I think people have perhaps a misunderstanding in that there's going to be a lot of expensive equipment that I'm going to need to install, and or I have to do all this, or it's going to be really a big pain from a technology perspective. And that's really not the case nowadays, is it?
It's not. And really, like I said, Microsoft, for years, we beat up on Microsoft because they had poor security practices. And, but they really, it's one of the companies where I'll say in the last really probably 5 to 10 years, they have really beefed up their security and with their out of the box security. And again, things like that, having, something like Microsoft Defender, which is an endpoint detection response solution, much better than any traditional AV solution that you could buy out of the box, comes with a 365 subscription. So there's things like that you can do and be in a much better spot without breaking the bank.
When I think about technology and me as a business owner, I'm going to educate myself and make sure I take preventative measures to safeguard as much of my data as possible. And if I'm, say, running a company of like 20 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, I've learned and I've heard, and you guys maybe kind of tell me this, that the weakest part of that whole system is not the systems itself, but it's the people, right? And so what do we need to be doing, guys? What should we be doing to protect not our assets, but to protect our people too as well?
And I promise I'm not selling Microsoft solutions here, but yeah, nothing at all. But that's another point, there from a training perspective is Microsoft 365. Most people don't know this, but they have a solution that comes with it where you can send out test phishing emails to your employees and your users. Again, another way to do that.
It's not a one time a year thing. It's an ongoing discussion and reminder, because it's the systems for the most part are probably pretty good. It's the people let their guard down or do something that wasn't designed correctly, that's what opens it up for those bad guys to potentially get in, or they just let their guard down. And it's human nature. It's going to happen. But hopefully you've got enough safeguards. It's like anybody could break into our homes, but hopefully you have the security and the things around your home. It applies the same way to your business and your data.
And I was just going to add, I think that's one of the toughest calls I get. And I don't get them a lot, but I do get them every once in a while as a small company says, hey, we got hit with ransomware. Everything's encrypted. They got our backups too, because they weren't the backups from the same network as their production systems. And they're like, what can we do? And unfortunately, I just have to tell them, well, you either can pay it, which I don't recommend ever paying it, but that's an option, or you got to rebuild from scratch. And that is what kills small businesses. If you have to basically start from scratch, or and hopefully not have to, but pay one of these criminal outfits to get your data back, that is it really can kill you. So just something to just consider.
Yeah.
And Bob, do you see a lot of small businesses where they've got their own servers and everything? I mean, because again, the system that we use, we're with a larger company, and they do a lot of that security, and they do that smart stuff where it's not sitting on the same server, and we run across a lot of companies that, I got to have my own server. And I'm like, in today's world, I'm not sure that's a good thing.
I agree with you. I agree completely. It depends, especially if you're really small, I recommend not going the route of the cloud. The cloud has some protections. You have to configure some of those protections sometimes, or use a managed service provider to help you with that. But that, we don't see a lot of people with their own servers, but we still do. Still have people that have one or two servers in a closet, a small practice, healthcare practice, something like that.
This is such a moving target. Things change, companies grow, and what you want to be able to do today. I've worked in enterprises. I've worked for enterprises as my clients, and those guys can afford to spend $250,000, $300,000 to have a chief information security officer. What about us small business owners? We don't really have the luxury of being able to spend that much. Some of us are just really trying to turn a profit. Is there a way that we could have somebody who could help us with our plan and be able to design and make sure we're up to speed and doing the right things for our company?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Benny, because that's exactly what we do is what we call them virtual CISO services, or chief information security officer services. But just to your point, you can't. Not everybody can afford to hire somebody full time, but you don't really need a full time person. But you need someone with expertise to come in and give you advice on what you should set up, what you could bypass. Maybe you have a large client that has a security addendum that's 50 pages long. You need them to look at that and say, how do I comply with this? That's where, we can come in and help do a security assessment. But yeah, definitely, even if it's not from us, there's several, outfits out there that do that type of work. But yeah, you can definitely, as a small business, have that same expertise. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a fractional CFO type of mentality where, you're getting a piece of their expertise and knowledge, but you're not paying a full price for a person, but you've got that resource to help you do that strategy. But also, if something goes wrong, that you can turn to them for guidance and direction.
I think this is a topic that is going to continue to evolve, and it's going to grow. And in my opinion, and just seeing with the clients that I deal with, this is never going away. This is, as long as there's money to be stolen, it's going to be necessary to combat the baddies in this. Can you guys give us a little bit, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but maybe, a couple different ideas, some tips and tricks that some folks could use to protect their businesses? You mentioned already a few, but maybe kind of give them a couple parting ideas.
Yeah, and some of these I'll skip over the ones we ran through, but like I said, the two-factor enable MFA, that's definitely critical. Backing up data regularly. So, and not only backing up data, but back it up to something that's not connected to your regular data set. And there's lots of solutions out there, backups, cloud backup services that you can use to back up data. And then, we talked about this, utilizing the services you're paying for. A lot of these solutions have built-in security that you just have to configure it. Another one I would just say is be careful who you give access to. I think sometimes companies, are, especially small, medium-sized companies, are a little too easy as far as, oh, hey, this contractor needs access to this. I'm just going to give him full access or admin access. Don't do that. Even though it's easy, figure out how do you limit the access to what they need to know. And we talked about training employees on phishing. But I think, there's a list, and I think you just kind of just keep work through it, keep improving. Like you said, Benny, this is an evolving thing. So you can't do 2 or 3 things and stop. You have to think
Nope.
about what are other things to add to that list.
Yeah. Well, this is great. And like I said, I think this conversation is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And there'll be some different technologies and different ways to want to approach that. But I know there are going to be some people out there who do have some questions specifically for you, Bob. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, probably the best way is to just go to our website, bullseyecompliance.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll include that also with the podcast. But in there, we have a contact us form. Go and fill out that contact us form. And right now, we're offering to all the work from home with 2 guys podcast listeners a free security assessment document that we'll send you. You can kind of get an idea of how does your security stack up and what are some recommendations around that. So if you go in, put that in the comments, we'll send that over to you.
Thank you guys for spending some time with us today. I feel a little bit smarter and a little bit more security aware. So thanks for stopping by today.
Thanks for having us.
Well, Dennis, that's another podcast in the can. I know that a lot of you all want to know how to get in touch with us. Dennis, what's the best way for folks to be able to get a hold of you?
Yeah, email's by far the best for me. It's Dennis J, so DENNISJ at worksolution.com, and that's WORX solution, no S at the end, so solution.com. Benny, how about you?
Yeah, same thing. Get a hold of me. My email address is benny@velocitytechnology.group. That's BENNY at velocitytechnology.group. Also, for me and Dennis, you can find us on LinkedIn. Look for us on LinkedIn. Our Work From Home with 2 Guys is on LinkedIn. And we also have a website, WFH2guys.com. Look us up. You'll find all the past episodes and some little bits of information that maybe we don't get a chance to talk to on the podcast. We put it out there too as well.
And definitely share us with your friends and people in your network.
Absolutely. Let us know what we can do to make this podcast your podcast. Give us some ideas. If you'd like to be a guest, let us know. We'll talk to you guys soon.
You've been listening to WFH with 2 Guys. We'll see you next time.